Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming and sharing this important time together. And thanks to all who have contributed in some way or another to making this day possible. Unbeknownst except to maybe a couple of us, today is a long-held dream that now comes true. Jane said many years ago, wondering if it would be possible to collect her work into one book. As you look at Jane's history of activities, she had many years to be created. As with many composers, some of their work is lost, destroyed, found later. So it is with Jane. Some of her writings remain among the unfound. We're still looking. So today, we will get a taste of her musical compositions and her writing. You are welcome to visit the display table after the concert is over to get a more full picture of all that she has done. We thank two of her nieces, Myra and Auntie, who were instrumental in compiling Jane's material into a book, and who are here and will read and play some of her work, and a third, Irene, who is also here and supportive of this enterprise, each with her husbands, Henry, Joe, and Mike. In addition, after putting this together, we discovered that our son and his wife, who had not planned to be here, had changes in their schedule so that they are here. And our daughter, who would like very much to be here, is very much engaged in being a primary caregiver. So she is stuck where she is. We also would be remiss if we did not thank all of those here at Tabor, office staff, Sharon, and the members of the choirs who have also shared in preparing this tribute. Jane, you here earned for a book of your labors. Now, guess what? There is one.
You sticker.
What cup is it? There. It's not fully complete, but a good reflection of the gifts that have come from your hand in response to the leading of God's Spirit, as you have often said. Presented by Myra and Angie, who assisted in the compilation.
Oh my, what a masterpiece. Oh my goodness. Oh. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank the Lord.
You're welcome, although I'm not the Lord.
Boss?
Only word of the matter.
Oh my goodness.
Mark Twain's Adventures of Tom Sawyer is a real classic and illustrates how carefree the spirit can be when it is outsized and unrestrained from the barriers they keep us fenced in. Twain's books illustrate the explorations of a little boy. But what about little girls? Some girls did not like to be kept attached to mother's apron strings. So it is with the adventures of Bobby Jane. I began writing stories about my childhood several years after my daddy died. Perhaps it was a way to hold on to his memory, or a way to relive and retain parts of my childhood days. Most of the stories are from the ages of 4 to 10. although there is one which described the day I was born. How could I write about the day I was born? Can one remember back that far? Well, I'm not quite sure. But over the years, I heard about that day so many times, I'm sure I remember almost every little detail. And so it goes. Reliving, retaining, telling, and retelling are part of a human process that we all experience, whether it is out of grief, joy, a tragic experience, or whether it is out of a desire to pass on to future generations the stories about the family tree. So I began writing my childhood stories out of a need to hold on to Daddy and Mama and grandparents, to pull from the corners of my mind a memory, a glimpse of the past, and put it down on paper. It is an exercise in preservation, not only to hand down to my children, but mostly to myself. In doing so, I will have a personal storybook, and all I have to do is open my book, and it will remind me of who I once was. So here's to my childhood and all the magical places Bobby Jane experienced those many years ago. And we will have a chance to look inside as several of those memories will be shared.
Hello there. My name is Angie Dollar, and I am the youngest daughter of Aunt Jane's big sister. And so you'll hear about Sister in some of these stories. And I'm going to read one of my favorites from the book. Bobby Jane Goes to School. Bobby Jane was looking forward to going to school. Since both of her parents were school teachers and Sister was going into 6th grade, she was very excited about school. But first, she had to get ready. Mother had made her some new clubbies. She had new shoes, her blonde hair had some curls, and it was time for Sister to put it all together in time to catch the school bus. Mother and Daddy had already left for school since they were teachers and had to get there before the children played. Once they arrived at the school building, Sister knew where to take Bonnie Jane. Sister tried to explain to her how it would be like in school. The teacher is in charge and will teach you how to read. You will have a seat and will look at the teacher and listen, and you will have to sit still. Also, and probably most important, the teacher, Miss Melton, has a paddle. All the children knew about Miss Melton and the paddle. Since Bobby Jane had never had to sit still for longer than an hour in church, she began to feel a little apprehensive of the whole situation. Maybe it would be best if she and Sister stayed at home and Sister could teach her how to read. That wish was soon wiped out. She was standing in the first grade doorway. Other children were already in their seats. Sister gently patted Bobby Jane on the behind and said to her, "Now go on in and be good. I'll get you after school is over." The first grade progressed from day to day. For the most part, Bobby Jane was a good girl, needing to paddle only once during the year. And once was one time too many. Bobby Jane was promised piano lessons when she was promoted to the second grade. She was excited about learning to play the piano. Mother and Sister played a lot, and they played beautifully. She would get to leave her second grade class during the day and go to the piano teacher's room. Her teacher, Miss Pruitt, didn't seem to mind. By now, Bobby Jane had learned to sing alto. Mother played for a quartet that came to their house on Saturday afternoon, and Bobby Jane would sit on a footstool beside the alto lady and sing almost as loud as the alto lady did. The lady would look at Bobby Jane and say, "Heavens to Betsy," whatever that meant. It made Bobby Jane laugh. Mother played piano, Daddy sang bass, and she was learning alto. Where's Sister? Bobby Jane didn't know about her. Is she reading a story somewhere? She'd ask her when she sees her. Also, in second grade, Bobby Jane hoped to read more than just see Jane run, see Vic run, see Dick and Jane run. Another chance to leave her second grade classroom was when Sister came along and got her to sing a duet with her in the 8th grade assembly. She and Sister could sing lots of duets, and Bobby Jane liked that. Sister had a pretty voice and she could blend in harmony with Sister. Bobby Jane was doing very good in second grade, but she still had some trouble sitting still for such a long period of time. In third grade, Bobby Jane developed another problem. By this time, she had made friends with a lot of her classmates. They began sharing more things at recess, and she realized also that some of her friends went to her church. This was even more exciting. The thing Bobby Jane remembers the most about third grade was having to write 100 times, "I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class." Therefore, Bobby Jane missed out on several, if not more, recess times outside, and she loved being outside. By the end of the school year, Bobby Jane had learned her lesson. She had heard about the 4th grade teacher. Miss Thomas was very well liked and was well known for some of the special projects she had her students do, and it was all true. Bobby Jane made a beautiful poem book with poems she copied out of the books the teacher had, and drew pictures to illustrate the poem. One of her favorite poems was Trees. Since Bobby Jane loved to climb trees, she memorized, "I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree whose leafy arms." As she drew a picture of a lovely apple tree, almost like the apple tree she had in her backyard. At Christmas time, the 4th grade class made a poem book of Christmas poems and songs and drew a Christmas tree on the front cover. For every poem in the book, the teacher put a star on a limb of the tree. It looked very pretty, and Bobby Jane kept working on her Christmas poem book until the tree was full of beautiful stars. Bobby Jane still has that folder. She loved 4th grade. She loved Miss Thomas. She loved everything about 4th grade so much she was not absent all during the year. She had perfect attendance.
Those who had perfect attendance always got a present from Miss Thomas. And her present was a beautiful round box of powder and a soft round puff inside. It smelled so pretty, and Bobby Jane loved to take a bath and then use the powder puff all over her body. It made her smell so good, and it made her feel so very special. After many more years of learning through high school and receiving 2 college degrees, Bobby Jane reflects back over these many, many years of learning, and the best year of all was 4th grade. Thanks, Miss Thomas. There is so much to be thankful for. Mother and Daddy, Miss Thomas, and many other teachers, aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends. But the best one of all is Sister. She's the best sister there is, east of the Mississippi, and maybe even farther away. Thanks, Sister. Thanks for praying for me. I love you, and
Most of you didn't get to see, but Sharon played that from the actual manuscript.
Wow.
Another of Jane's favorite stories is titled Goblins and Whippoorwills. Bobby Jane always believed in what she was told. She always knew about Sunday school, church, and God. She always knew and believed in mothers, daddies, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, cousins, and sister. She always knew about Christmas, Santa Claus, and baby Jesus. She always knew about Easter, rabbits, eggs, new dresses, hats, and new Sunday shoes. She knew about making rows in the garden with a plow and a mare and a daddy. She knew about planting seeds, covering them up, and hoeing. Bobby Jane knew about almost everything, at least she thought so, because she had been told about a lot of things. She knew and remembered wise old sayings like, "Pretty is as pretty does," "Love thy neighbor as thyself," and "Obey thy parents." These and many other learnings would follow Bobby Jane through all the rest of her days. But on several occasions in her life, she questioned some things she had been told. The first remembrance of her beliefs being shattered might have come out of her own doing, where she had also heard it said that bad things happen to spindly and pale little girls who behave badly. So, no doubt in her life, she was to experience a bad thing or two. She was disturbed in the first place because, unbeknownst to her, she had been left at grandmother's house. Not left accidentally, but on purpose. She hadn't even realized that clothing, a few toys, crayons, coloring book, and her doll had come with them to grandmother's house. But yes, it was so. She was there to stay. For how long? She did not know. After realizing her parents had gone, she was still there, and she began to make the best of the situation. It wasn't her first stay at grandmother's, nor her last. And Granddaddy was there too. She absolutely adored Granddaddy almost as much as her own daddy. Granddaddy would let her pat his bald head. After all, it was not so terrible to be there. It was not a bad place. In fact, it was adventurous. The well, the grown-up garden, the big porch and a rope swing hanging from the huge oak tree with an old car tire, which had surely been up and down the dirt road 1,000,000 times. But night was horrible for Bobby Jane, especially if she had tested her grandmother's patience a little too much. If so, she would be sure to hear about the goblins in the attic who steal little bad girls, the snakes under the porch, or in the deep black silence of the night hear the call of the whippoorwill in the dark, deep woods, which in time and to the rhythm of her tiny heart became the call of "Whip-poor Jane, whip-poor Jane," her. And it was on more than one occasion that these realities threatened her very own soul. The bed was too big, much too big for Bobby Jane's spindly and pale body. The high poster board frame seemed to hover over her like a dragon magnified 1,000 times. But it was a soft, lumpy bed, and she had plenty of room to toss and turn. The grandmother had brought her a pea pot just in case, because in her earlier days, Bobby Jane was known to wet the bed. It would be years and years before Granddaddy would cede to an indoor bathroom. She knew that sleep would come sometime, but not before the goblins had a dance or two on the attic floor. Sleep would not come until after she had heard the whip her again and again. But she knew sleep would come. Close your eyes, say your prayers, she thought, over and over. Close your eyes. Say your prayers. Say your prayers louder than the whippoorwills. And she did. Dear God, thank you for grandmother and granddaddy too. Thank you for the sourwood whistle he made for me today. Thank you for the cool well water, the rain barrel, and for a cottage cheese dripping on the back porch. Thank you for my swing and for Granddaddy's swing on the front porch. Thank you for Sister, wherever she is. And thank you for my mother and daddy, wherever they are. And God, thank you for the goblins and whippoorwills and baby giddies.
So, as we celebrate Miss Jane, there's another story to tell. Tabor bells and God's timing. This is a story.
So we had borrowed 4 bells from a local church to play with the choir anthem one Sunday morning. Mrs. Helen Swanson was in the congregation that morning, and she thought the bells were the greatest thing and wondered had we considered purchasing bells. So, long story short, we did purchase bells, and we were trying to pursue the next step in creating a bell choir. Well, about that same time, Pastor Pflieger had arrived as chaplain at the Lutheran Church Kane. Jane came too, and with her great background, she was instrumental in starting the bell choir. So, in Jane's fashion of excitement, enthusiasm, and lots of determination, she started not only one bell choir, but two. Now, her invitation to ring bells was irresistible. If you did not read music, that's okay, she'll teach you. If you never play handbells, that's okay, she'd teach you. No one escaped a wonderful invitation to be part of this new adventure. She even taught the retired superintendent of the Kane school system to George. No, he did not read music, but he joined with his daughter and they played for several years. Jane's dedication paid off. Tabor bells became part of the church's ministry. Her enthusiasm, excitement, and determination are a great contribution to our church family. And this next poem was written for the bell choir, and I'm not sure what the date is on coming, but it reflects Miss Jane. So she named it Hand in Glove Excuses. Excuses is the word you want to look at. My bell was caught in the cloth. My glove got caught in the clapper. These aren't my notes. The handle's loose. My partner's soup too full chatter. Oh, I didn't know we were repeating. I had something stuck in my eye. Oh no, my bells are too cold. I just sprained my wrist. Do I march? Do I pluck? Do I ring? Would you please simplify? Oh, I didn't know a B sharp was a C natural. I rang, but the clapper was stuck. I don't read bass clef. The page turn messed me up. Oh, last week, didn't that note he did, wasn't that out of pluck? She didn't play, so I didn't play. We were not told which page we were ringing. A screech just fell out. My glasses are lost. This table's just too high for them dinging. There's a hole in my glove. My pencil just broke off. Was that my bell you did strike? My feet hurt. My shoulders ache. I don't like this piece anyway. And now for the real reasons, she says. I didn't listen. I didn't concentrate. I didn't count. I didn't watch the director. Oh. I didn't check my bells. And I didn't pray.
Good afternoon. I'm Myra Wooden. I am Jane's sister's middle daughter, and my middle name is Jeanette, Little Jane.
Priming tobacco.
Where's Bobby Jane? She's already with Daddy, ready to go, was the reply. Bobby Jane had indeed been ready. She had followed her daddy to the barn for the morning milking, had put her tiny left hand around the milk pail handle next to her daddy's right hand, and they both carried the milk to the house. She had followed her daddy to the barn again, where he hitched the mare to the wagon, and sitting on the wooden plank seat, she was ready to go. This would be a day of hard work, but Bobby Jane had a way of turning hard work into fun. "Ready, Dinktum?" her daddy asked. "I'm ready, Daddy," she answers. He lifted her up onto the wagon seat next to him, and with a gentle giddy up and flick of the reins, which only a daddy could do, the wagon began to move. They left their small farm and headed down the dirt road to Uncle's farm, where they would spend the day at the tobacco barn priming the tobacco. Aunts, uncles, cousins, mother, daddy, and even big sister would be there. The first priming of tobacco meant the bottom leaves were big enough to snap off. Bobby Jane remembers the early spring when they set the plants in the earth. With a long tin tube, her cousin had jabbed the smaller end into the ground, placed the tobacco plant in the upper end, and with the release of water, the plant became set in its place. Over and over, row after row, until acres were filled with tiny tobacco plants where they sat tiny and straight, waiting for rain and sunshine to nourish their spindly and pale green frames. We must have done a good job, Bobby Jane thought, as she bounced to the rhythm of the old mare's trot. We had good rain, good sunshine, and good hoeing, and she thought to herself that God had done a good job too. Everyone was to meet at the tobacco barn close to the creek she called Slick Rock. This was another favorite spot for Bobby Jane's adventures, but Slick Rock is for another time. Much fuss was made over the order of the day. The men would go to the fields to prime. Elongated sleds, narrow enough to fit between the rows, without sides, and pulled by the mules, collected the thousands and even millions of tobacco leaves. The men would pull, and after having an armful of leaves they could hardly see over, they would gently place their gatherings on the wagon. Bobby Jane had to stay close to the tobacco barn with the rest of the women, who waited patiently for the first full wagon of freshly picked tobacco leaves. She kicked at the dirt, played a game of hopscotch, and her eyes had glanced at the fields at least 13 times per minute, anxious to be the first one to yell, "They're coming! The wagon is coming!" "The crop looks good," a cousin yelled as he was being pulled alongside the wagon, the rope around his back helping to guide the spirited mule. The big green fuzzy leaves piled high on the elongated, sideless wagon bounced to a stop. The leaves were unloaded onto the planks, which laid across wooden horses, and the women's work began. This time, the work included Bobby Jane, who by mid-morning would have the most black-ridden, tar-sticky hands of any other man, woman, or beast east of the Mississippi. That was the best part for Bobby Jane. The feeling of tobacco gum, the stickier the better, the blacker the better. But she considered it all in a day's adventure. And also, should she find a big, green, juicy tobacco worm, she would throw it at her sister. So they did anything wiggly and juicy and green. Picking up the leaves by the stem where they had been plucked from their source of life, neatly putting 3 or 4 together at the stem, then handing it to her mother to string. That was the process. With each handful of tobacco leaves, the hands accumulated a bit more sticky black tar. More leaves, more tar. Barbie Jane wondered if the person who had the blackest, stickiest, tarriest hands was the person who had worked the hardest of all. If so, she would surely go home with the prize, because Bobby Jane was always the stickiest and blackest one when it came to tobacco work.
But she was not the only one deserving of a prize, because Bobby Jane's mother could string tobacco the best, the fastest, and the tightest of any tobacco stringer east of the Mississippi. It was never too tight, else the string would cut through the ends of the stems, and during the curing process, the leaves might fall from their drying places in the tobacco barn. But yes, sir, Bobby Jane's kinfolk were good tobacco primers, and Bobby Jane's mom was the best stringer, and Bobby Jane's daddy could say giddy up like no other daddy could. And Bobby Jane herself could get the blackiest, stickiest, and tariest of anyone east of the Mississippi, and even perhaps the whole wide world. There were usually 3 or 4 or sometimes 5 stringers lined up in front of the plank tables where the tobacco was laid. Handmade wooden stands held the stick on which the tobacco would be strung. Balls and more balls of string lay around and under the tables. The string had to be the right thickness and strength, and the sticks had to be the right length and about a ½ inch in diameter. Bobby Jane looked around taking inventory of these items. Plenty of string, plenty of sticks. Yes, all is in good order. Bobby Jane's mom ties the end of the string to the end of the stick. Holding the stick in her right hand, standing alongside the stick in the stand, Bobby Jane hands the first group of leaves with one hand while eyeing and picking up the next set of leaves with her left hand. Whoosh! The first group is on. Her mom had taken the leaves with her left hand, twisted the string around the stems, and push, flipped and pushed them into their place on one side of the stick. The next set of leaves would be twisted and flipped and pushed to the opposite side of the stick, and with a twist, a flip, a push, and a push, the stick began to fill, one side and then another. 20, 30 groups of 3 and 4 leaves, all ending upside down on a stick on a stand until it can hold no more. Bobby Jane's mom was so good, she needed 2 or 3 people handing groups of 3 or 4 leaves to her. There was plenty of talk around that whoever was going to hand up to Bobby Jane's mom was going to get a workout. Bobby Jane knew it to be so because she handed to her mom and she got a workout. After the stick was filled, the strongest person would lift it off his stand and place it on the ground where they could be piled and waiting for the men to finish in the field. They would load them on the sleds and take them to the back tobacco barn where they would be hung for drying. The men, usually Bobby Jane's cousins, would form a line. It was man to man, about 3 or 4 feet apart, from huge piles of strung tobacco sticks to the highest and shortest beams in the barn. Bobby Jane eyes her daddy there, among her uncles and cousins, in a long line of tired, sweaty, and dirty, and no doubt hungry lineup of maleness, all strong and able to complete the hard task of hanging the tobacco in the barn. A cousin was appointed to climb to the uppermost beam of the barn, where the first stick would be hung. Below him was another cousin, an uncle, another cousin, another uncle, and daddy. As the minutes went by, the outside pile of strung tobacco became smaller, and the barn became fuller. The work continued from one person to the next. One heavy stick goes up, another heavy stick is picked up and passed up, and up it goes. This might be one moment in time that Bobby Jane is thankful she is not a boy. She had never seen a mom or an aunt, and much less a sister, up in the rafters of the tobacco. It would take nigh on 2 for 3 hours to fill a barn with hundreds of sticks and thousands of leaves hanging by their stems on a stick, some high among the beams, some around the middle beams, and the final ones, which had been the first ones to be strung, would hang on the lowermost beams. And there they would hang for drying, or curing as they called it. And it was all in a day's work. From the time the kinfolk met that morning, they all knew that by sundown, from top to bottom, a fire would be set and the fruits of the tobacco fields would begin to cure. And Bobby Jane also knew how it felt to be proud that she had done a good job of handing groups of 3 or 4 tobacco leaves to the best stringer east of the Mississippi. And she was proud that her daddy had picked up the sticks filled with leaves, one after another. And even after all the hard work of this day, her dad would help unhitch the mules and mares, feed and bed them down in Uncle's barn. Then Bobby Jane, Dad, and Mom, and Sis would return to their own barn and milk the cow. She would once again put her tiny left hand around the milk pail handle next to her daddy's right hand, and they would carry the milk to the house.
Peace will come to me.
Thank you all for sharing in this time together, a precious time filled with tears and gratitude. You're welcome to see the table in the back of the room, display of some of the work that Jane has done over the years. For those who want to see what a tobacco barn looks like, there's a picture in the back with Jane alongside of it. In the fellowship room, adjoining this room, there's a time for fellowship and cookies and whatever the ladies have prepared. Thank you so much.
Should we sing happy birthday?
She's got a cake, she's got a cup.
Oh, okay.
I didn't write that, so you don't see it.